So once again, I want to, hey everybody, good to be with you. So once again, I got to tell you that I'm having a hell of a time getting video guy to come into the house, if you will. In other words, the one who cuts these videos has not made itself known for the last few weeks. It will not deign to come visit me in this room. And as a result of that, we've had no videos. Just seems wrong, doesn't it? It does seem wrong, is it? Let's see. Have we had any videos? No. Should we have had any videos? No. How do we know? We didn't. Okay. That's how we know. And that is just the easiest way to check on everything throughout life is compare what you've got in your head with what you've got in front of you. And if they don't match up, you're wrong. So the most oft asked question is, why can't I stabilize? Right? So it's king or queen seeker baby on their throne. And they want to know why I can't stabilize. It's driving me crazy. But the problem is that you don't know who it is that's asking, why can't I stabilize? No, you do know who it is that's asking why I don't stabilize. You're unwilling or unable to accept it. That's the truth. The truth is you don't need an awakening. Let's get this clear. You don't need an awakening. You don't need me or anybody else to wake you up or anything, because you're already awake. Your awakeness itself. The problem is you won't accept that. And that's where people like me come in. I say people like me, but I don't know actually anyone that's doing exactly the same thing that I'm doing here. People are doing some things sort of like this, and some of them are having a lot of success. I don't know how their students are doing, but they're having a lot of success. Here, there's only been a modest success here, but the students are doing great. So I think that's kind of the way that this thing's supposed to work. But who knows? You know, all I can do is notice what's happening. And if I notice what's happening, that tends to line up with what's in my head. So I got to think that just might be true. At any rate, why can't I stabilize? I've had 2 glimpses. I've had 42 glimpses. I had an awakening way back in 79, and I had awakening, another one in 99, Fred just had an awakening last week. It was a magnificent. I could see that everything was perfect. Everything was fine. I could see that everything couldn't not be fine. And now I can't get there. I can't get there. Somehow I fell out of that, or I lost that, or whatever. And that's happened to me before. And I have to tell you, I'm pretty pissed off about it. Why can't I stabilize? And let me tell you that I fully sympathize with you, because I was in that position. Well, let's see, I was in that position prior to the 2006 awakening, all the way from 1992, from the winter of 1992 until the early autumn of 2006. So how long is that? Well, that's a very long time. That's 14 years. So I was experiencing this. I got it. I lost it for 14 years, and then awakening occurred. And then, damn, it still didn't. It still didn't go away. I mean, I still had that feeling. That feeling didn't go away. And in post-awakening, I was getting this feeling of, why can't I stabilize? And I've got students galore who report this same thing, that they just can't seem to stabilize. Or they do stabilize, and then something happens in their life, And when it does, there's a unit overwhelm, and they go back and misidentify again with the body and the imaginary character. You know, the imaginary character, that imaginary character, what's it do? What is one of its one of its habits? It does this, right? You're not enough. You're not good enough. You hadn't studied enough. You haven't meditated enough. You really should meditate more. You know, you haven't read enough books. You really should go ahead and get that book on Amazon. If it doesn't work, you know they've got another one that will. Come on, let's go to the retreat, damn it. I know we've been to 19 before, but let's go to the next one, because the next one's gonna do it. I had a client, he was a French psychologist, and he took 6 years out of his life to follow a very famous teacher. And he and his friend, and it turned out that there was a group of guys that did that, and they became friends, of course. And actually they would go prior to this town, prior to the teacher, and would get set up, right? They'd just set up the satsang. Maybe they didn't go to the town prior to it, but they went to the meeting hall prior to the teacher, and they set everything up. And I can tell you, when they were setting stuff up, he told me they were always excited because they were telling each other, this is the one. This is the one where we're going to get it. And so after 6 years, what my friend in France noticed was, it's been 6 years and I ain't got it. And my practice has gone in the toilet. It's cost me my money. It's cost me everything, and I got nothing. This is a true story. So that's where he was when he met me. Well, needless to say, he didn't stay in that position. We had an awakening session. 90 minutes later, the guy was liberated, so to speak. That's not really true. There's no guy there to be liberated. It just say his name was Bob, and Bob was not liberated because there's no Bob that can be liberated, but there was liberation experienced through the Bob unit. And that's actually what was supposed, I mean, that's all that can happen, right? It's not like Fred can wake up. There's no one over here. So maybe this fact that there's no Fred over here, maybe that's a tip off as to why Fred can't stabilize. Tell me this. If an imaginary character eats an imaginary hamburger, will it like it? Well, I mean, that's a stupid question. It's an imaginary character. It can't eat or not eat anything. It's an imaginary hamburger. So what you're talking about is just simply nonsense. That's what we're talking about when we say, why can't I stabilize? You are already stabilized. You just don't know who I'm talking to. There is someone on that side of the screen. There's someone over there that thinks I'm Beth and I'm miserable and I just can't seem to wake up. Or I'm Beth, I've had some awakening experiences. They were all idyllic. They were beautiful. I saw that everything was fine, that there's nothing to worry about ever, and all of this and that. And then I fell out of it and right back in this hell. Well, Beth is an imaginary character. So if imaginary Beth eats an imaginary hamburger, will she like it? And this is a little bit more of a mind twister, isn't it? Well, since it's an imaginary Beth, can she eat an imaginary hamburger? No. What can an imaginary Beth do? Nothing. It's imaginary. She's imaginary. And now we've got an imaginary Beth or Tom or Bob or Susan or whatever it is over there. And they want to know either why can't I stabilize or why can't I wake up, right? It's really the same. And the answer is the same. is that we don't know who's talking, because it is assumed unless you're already awakened at this moment, not because you woke up some time ago and you remember it. It doesn't count for anything. I'm sorry. I mean, it will in the end, probably, but it doesn't have to. And don't think that you have graduated. That's what I thought. And I thought that upon awakening, that first time, upon actually having a glimpse in Kensho, in Zen, they would call that Kensho, meaning a little awakening, the little awakening. And then they call Satori the big kahuna. And so I had a Kensho moment, or it was a long moment, but a moment, we could call it. A Kensho experience, we could call it, although it's not quite accurate. Then years later, I had at least it's rumored that there was someone who had a Satori, but I can't promise you that. But that's the rumor that I keep hearing. So is that there was a Fred unit who had a Satori. So Fred's imaginary. Just like Beth, just like Bob. There's no Fred over here. So there's only imaginary Fred. Now, how tall do you think imaginary Fred is? Well, if you answered the way that most of my clients will until they know better, and they have to be, alert to it right now, because sometimes they know better, and then what happens? They lose it. They fall out of it. None of which is true. Fred has no height. He's imaginary. It's an imaginary character. So what's talking to you? Can't be a Fred, can it? Fred is an imaginary character. Now, whose imaginary character is it? Now, that's a good question. How tall is Fred? Who wants to know? If you can show me a Fred, I'll weigh it for you. How about that? If you can show me a Fred, I'll measure it for you and I'll let you know. But there's not one. There's no Fred here. There never was a Fred here. See? But I had taken this rumor. My parents had heard this rumor. They made up this rumor. My parents actually made up the rumor. They said, we're having a new unit. Hell, let's call it Fred. Okay. And we'll agree. It's an agreement, but it's not truth. That's an aftermarket tag that they label a unit with. And that's what happened, is that my parents labeled this one Fred. And, I was resistant for a few years as a child. And then boom, the next thing you know, I felt obligated. I was forced because I needed to get along in the world. And the only way it seemed like I could get along in the world would be if I would just join this damn rumor, this story about this being a Fred, about there even being a Fred. See, if this ain't a Fred, it's not like this is a Fred. It's not like that guy's a Fred. See, it is a true statue, but it's an imaginary Buddha. See, we can say, oh, and bow to it and everything. And when I do, I'm bowing to a principle, but I'm not bowing to Buddha, the teacher from 2,500 years ago. Why can't I stabilize? Who wants to know? When you say, why can't I stabilize? Who's asking me that question? When I used to ask that question, why can't I stabilize? Then actually, I know, then what it really was. See, Even when video guy's here, he's not that smooth, right? It just because it feels like that maybe you may be projecting that there's something special over here. There's not. This is just an ordinary guy. I wasn't born under a pumpkin or anything like that, like in a fairy book or fairy tale book or anything like that. I was born in Columbia Hospital in Columbia, South Carolina. That's what, and now this, when I'm speaking of the projection of a Fred over here, it's a self-projection, but I didn't start it. My parents started that rumor. My parents started a rumor that there was a Fred here. And I found it really, really convenient to join them in believing that rumor. And then guess what I did? I passed that rumor along. I said, hey, there's a Fred here and it looks just like this. And every time I said it, guess who bought it first? I bought it again. I bought it again. I bought it. Hi, I'm Fred. I bought it again. I bought it again. So, but it doesn't make it true. It just means that it's a rumor, and it becomes a convincing rumor because we build up all kinds of false evidence for it. All evidence that we build up for a character, an imaginary character, the evidence is imaginary too. Because for instance, you can say, well, you just told us you were born in Columbia Hospital in 1952, which has been a while, you may notice. I'll be 70 in a few months. God almighty, that is really old, isn't it? It is. It is old for human beings, but it's not old for me. I don't have any age. And I'm not the I am that you think that I might be, or I'm not the I am that you think you might be. You can't say you're not, but you can't actually say that you are. First, we learn that we are, and then we learn later, if we're lucky, that we are not. I've read that just this morning. I mean, I say this all the time, but I read it again this morning in a book, and it was a quote of Nisargadatta's. And I went, wow, look at that. He's really on the ball. I'm sure Nisargadatta Maharaj will appreciate my accolade, right? And my confirmation of his awakening. See, Nisargadatta didn't need a confirmation of his awakening. He got one, I guess, but he didn't need it. Actually, he didn't go back to see his guru. So he did not get confirmation from his guru, but so maybe he didn't confirmation. Well, didn't get it. Well, I'm giving it to him now. I'm confirming his awakening. I confirm awakenings. And what is talking to you right now also had its awakening confirmed by other teachers. So Sailor Bob being one of them. But don't blame anything on Sailor Bob. He's a really nice man who's been doing great work for decades. By the time you get confirmation of your awakening, you don't need it. You don't need it. It's nice to hear, especially if you're not living in India, where these things are, where there's a guru on every corner. And they're talking, but I wonder how many of their students are actually getting it. I read another quote this morning that I'll share with you. And Nisargadatta used to say that the truth was avoided by the spiritual shops. That's what he called teachings, spiritual shops. He said they don't tell the truth because they are invested in keeping their audience. And if you tell them the truth, you may lose them. That's what happens here. Sometimes I lose people. Sometimes I don't lose them. They're still watching videos and stuff. They would talk right to me years later, but they're not here in front of me. But most of them have been for some time, if they're now clear. Not everybody, but some of them come to me already awakened. I had somebody this week who came to me. He was already awake. He didn't need confirmation. He just needed to have clarity about what had already occurred. And that's what these people want. Clarity is what you're looking for. You're not, see, what is the name of my website? I mean, I got it years ago before I even really got it. I mean, before I got this part of it anyway. Is that it's awakening clarity. It's not awakening Bob. It doesn't say awakening Susan. It's awakening clarity. And what wakes up? Clarity wakes up. And well, why can't I stabilize? Because you're imaginary. Not that, I'm not saying that body's imaginary, although it might be, but I'm not saying that that body is imaginary. We're not going there right now. What we're doing is noticing that what wants to wake up is an urge, isn't it? It's an urge. I have an urge. Let's check that statement. I have an urge. We can find an urge, can't we? Woo! If you're a seeker, still seeking. And even if you've had an awakening experience, there will not necessarily is going to be stability. Why can't I stabilize? Because awakening is when awakeness itself comes to experience awakeness itself consciously. And what's happening around the world is that awakeness is experiencing awakeness, but at first it does not know it, and then it will not claim it. In other words, prior to awakening, there's an urge for all seekers, not for everybody on the planet, thank God, but for all seekers. And there's not going to be a worldwide awakening. I don't think so, folks. I believe there might be a large, I think there is something going on now. And there may be that enough people of influence wake up. I don't know. But the idea that some of the people that I read about in the newspaper and some of the people that I see at the state fair, the idea that those people are going to wake up is it's bullshit. Just is. Now, there's nobody there. So let me straighten that out. There's nobody there. I don't see anybody else. All I ever see is me. But sometimes I have on such a convincing costume and have such a convincing story that even conscious awakeness will think, that's wrong. That person shouldn't be doing that. Look at Putin. This unit is screaming about that. And it thinks Putin shouldn't be doing what he's doing. And there ain't no Putin. There's just conditioning arising to meet a circumstance. That's what's happening. It's automated. There's nobody over there that can do different than what it does. We're arguing with what is when we say that shouldn't be happening. It doesn't mean that I am not accepting that I'm not throwing in the towel. I'm not, because there's the unit is hardly against that. And I have no problem, because I have no opinion. See, that's the funny thing, is I don't have any opinions. You know, the reason I don't have any opinions is I don't know anything. Now, the unit knows plenty. The unit knows plenty in the sense that it knows just enough to keep itself in trouble. And that's what's wrong with your unit, is that it thinks it knows a great deal and it doesn't. Again, something I read this morning, and that this teaching is really, really simple. I don't think he said really, really, but he said this teaching is very simple. And he said that people try to complicate it, because if they do that, they will win accolade, or maybe make money, or maybe impress people, or whatever the goal is. But this thing is really, really simple, and you don't need a degree to get this. You don't need to go to India to get this. You don't need to read a library of books to do this. But I read a library of books. I've still got probably a couple of thousand around here of them. But others have just disappeared along the way. I tried to collect all the Nisargadatta books. I don't even have them anymore, right? I mean, it's true. I don't know what the hell happened to them. I would have never thrown those books away, but somehow a box got lost in a move or something. But that's okay, because I don't need a bunch of books on Nisargadatta. The truth is, I just need one, and I just need to pay attention to it. It doesn't mean that everything that can be known is in that book, but everything that can't be known is in that book. So there might be greater clarity, because when this thing woke up, when awakeness woke up through this unit, the first thing it thought was, wow, nobody ever got here. And the second statement is, and that makes me really special. Who is it that said that? Well, I got to tell you, that was imaginary Fred, and there's no Fred. So when I say imaginary Fred, what do I mean? I mean, who was it? That was awakeness that was believing a thought. Awakeness was believing a thought. See, you're always awake. When you come out of the womb, what's the first thing that happens? Is that there's a unit experiencing. The unit is now, there's experiencing happening through a unit, chiefly visual, but also through all the other senses, including, well, probably not much thinking yet, but thinking is a false sense. It's not really a sense. Well, I guess all the senses are sort of false. So yeah, it'll fall right in well with senses. We'll call thinking a sense too. I don't have to think to hear, do you? No. So do we need to get down and put our thinking caps on and really figure this thing out? No. What you got to do, but only if you want to wake up, and only if you want, and you don't want to wake up. If you want to continue to suffer, just cut this video off now, because this is freedom talking, and it's freedom talking to freedom, and it's recognized, quote, over here through this unit, through this sack of conditioning, because there's no Fred here, but within relativity, there's a sack of conditioning. My parents left me for it. We call it DNA. And then there's been everything that happened to this unit since that DNA was left on the planet. And that's conditioning too. And what's happening is that it's moving through different conditioning. Conditioning is moving through conditioning. And when it does, the conditioning is always fluxing. It's always changing. It's just always changing. And I don't like it to change, except for the fact when I don't have something, I do want it. But once I've got what I want, I don't want there to be any more change. I want to stop right here. I want to stop right here. I want to stop evolution of reality, of what we, excuse me, evolution of relativity right here and now. And can you stop? No, that's not relativity. Relativity is what? It's built on what? It's built on this. It's built on the play of the opposites, hence this yin-yang symbol, which you can see has had better days. But I love it. I've had it for a very long time. And if it gets broken, I'll just glue it again. Because it works for you, doesn't it? See, I won't change because I'm not getting what I want. And I know as soon as I get what I want, that everything's going to be okay and I'm going to be okay and I'll finally be enough and all that will straighten out. And then I get what I want and I move here and the rising takes a different view. And I notice that, wow, I really did want that. And I'm really am glad that I got it, but it's not the thing that's going to satisfy me. The thing that I'm going to satisfy me is down here. And around and around and around we go. Whoop, just about dropped it. Just about broke it again. You've heard me talk about claiming your awakening. That's what, and I've had 2 people this week come to me and for awakening sessions who said, I think there may have been something, but I don't seem to be able to claim my awakening. And it turned out they did. Turned out they did claim it. Both of them. But who claimed it was not the one who was telling me that it wanted to wake up. The one who wants to wake up won't. Isn't that awful? And it's true. I hate to break your heart, but the one who wants to wake up won't. So let's settle that. The one you think you are is never going to wake up, ever, ever, ever. There's no Fred Davis that ever woke up. There's not a Fred Davis here now, enlightened or unenlightened. It's just there's no Fred Davis here. So that couldn't have happened. Well, no Fred Davis here. Let's see what this unit, so to speak, this empty-headed unit, let's see what the senses tell it. Well, first, there's this sense that I am, just a sense of being here, just a sense of aliveness. Is that right? Is that first? I don't think so. That's what is thought of as being first. It's what's talked about as being first, but it's not what's first. You can test it for yourself right now. Which feels more true for you to report to yourself right now? I am, or there's a sense of being? Tell me which is actually true. If you had to tell me the truth, which would you tell me? I've done this with an awful lot of people, and virtually all of them. I mean, it's just a couple who reported I am, and then they quickly backed down from that when I pointed something out. But at any rate, almost everybody can see that the sense of being is more true. And we want to notice that sense of being doesn't mean being. And everybody's talking about being. I want to know where it is. It must be over there somewhere. I need to get there so I can wake up. Only the funny thing about oneness is that there ain't nothing outside of it. We don't figure this, because in my life, oneness was over there and I was over here. And when I thought about oneness, I never included this unit. I never included the mind, if you will. I never included the automation. All of that was, lying outside of oneness and needed to connect to oneness. Now look at your definitions. We got oneness, which means there's one, right? We could say advaita, not two, but oneness is just easier to talk about, either though the others are slightly more accurate. But there can be feelings. Feelings don't point necessarily to truth. There can be a sense, there's a sense of Fred. There was a feeling that I was a Fred. Now I find out that I don't know what the hell I am. And if you came here because you think this thing knows something, you're wrong. What's been accomplished, not by this unit, because it's not has nothing to do with this unit, other than that this unit is the food of the consciousness that is playing out everywhere we look. But you're prior to that. Can you feel that? Prior to birth, did you have any experiences that you can remember? Now, those of you who are claiming past lives, I understand that there's that within the dream, there are maybe a situation where there are past lives. I can't know. There are no rules here. But I can tell you that within true, that just doesn't play out. The reincarnation thing is out. You will never hear me discuss in a serious manner reincarnation unless it is just to bat it down. I've lost students over the concept of reincarnation because they won't give up their specialness as a human being. And that's what you won't give up if you're not awake right now. But you are not a human. So how are you going to give up your humanness? You don't have to. You can notice that humanness continues. It's automated. You can't stop it. You didn't start this thing. You can't stop it. You think, well, I can put a gun to my head and pull the trigger. Plenty of people put a gun to their head and then pull the trigger, and it just did. And some of them, the gun didn't fire, and some of them blew their damn head, half of their heads off, but they didn't die. Some of them did. A lot of them did. But that can't happen unless everything in the universe is in agreement with that happening. I know it's crazy. This whole damn thing is crazy. If you've stuck with me a long while, good for you. I think I'm done with this because you just have to accept the truth. Is that you just have to accept the truth of the most basic pointer, which is you are not the body. The body is not me. Try that. The body is not me. So what can I find in the absence of the body? Let me see. So if I'm not this body, what else is here? Well, I can't be this body. And can I be all these objects? Well, the objects are actually objects of experience by this body, aren't they? So these things are not your experience. They're your little avatar's experience. And what you're experiencing is you're dreaming. You're dreaming right now that there's a Fred here that knows something that ain't true. And you're dreaming that there's a you here, an imaginary you here who doesn't know something, and that's not true either. Ponder this. If you must, hopefully, I bet I will get emails from people telling me I was listening to this video and you woke up, because I often get them. And I bet I will get some from this. And if you didn't, just stay with it. Don't try to understand it, because it's not going to happen. Just allow the video to do its work. You are not required to help it. Let the video do its work. Let the teaching do the work. You don't need to even try. Now, you may notice that you can't not try. But when you can't not try, it's because you don't know who you are. Because there's nothing but you. There's nothing but awakeness. Awakeness has two states. It can be conscious awakeness or unconscious awakeness. Consciousness, unconscious awakeness, here it is. This is all awakeness, but there's no knowing it. But when awakeness recognizes awakeness, we call that realization. And how much trouble, how difficult is it to realize something? How difficult is it to realize that you're watching this video? How much sweat do you build up when you realize that you're watching this video? How much time does it take for you to notice that you're watching this video? You just have to be alert to what's already going on. And if you don't know, if you can't get alert on your own, come see me. Satsang will change your life. I would just say that flat out statement. And I can say that with great education because I've just watched it happen over and over again. And it's not like it's, you know, thousands and I don't get hundreds of people coming to satsang, but I get people who come in and they see the truth, and some of them stay for a long time and some of them don't. I have a guy, a client, you know, who comes to satsang every Sunday, and he told me, he said, I can't understand how they quit, right? Why would they do that? And it's and sometimes there's because they can't not, they just notice, well, this thing is moving on. Other times it's an urge. It's that urge because there's going to be something clearer over here. There is not. Come to satsang. I love you.